Hi everybody, today I just wanted to go through some basic core exercises that you can do to activate the front, side, and back of your body. I think oftentimes we think that core is like the six-pack that we sometimes for some reason are all chasing. Newsflash is that the six-pack is very superficial, and in order to know that we are actually activating properly, we really have to train those deep abdominal muscles, our inner core muscles, our inner core unit, the side and the back of our body. So we need to maybe steer clear of always just thinking of planks and any sort of curling position. They're not necessarily bad, but there are so many other ways to activate our bodies and in different planes of motion and in different directions. So we're gonna be working front, side, and back today in the next few movements. So for our dead bug position, we're gonna start laying on our back. For my purposes, some people cue a flat back. We're gonna have a neutral spine, which means that we're not overarching, we're not pressing flat. It's just something neutral in between the two. You could slide your hand underneath. Then you're gonna take your fingertips, place them in and down from your hip bones. Take a big inhale. Feel like your belly rises. Exhale, draw those low core muscles in without forcing the back flat. So it's like you're pulling a tight pair of pants up or putting a belt on. Then you're gonna lift your legs up to tabletop. Knees are in line with hips, shins are parallel to the floor. You're gonna slowly start to tap one leg out at a time. As you do this, we wanna notice, do the ribs stay down or do they flare? So we wanna keep the upper back flat and heavy. Can we maintain that neutral spine, or do we start to dip and rock the pelvis? And most importantly, are we just going out for the sake of thinking we're going all the way? We want to make sure that we're feeling it in the right places. So if it helps, you can place your fingertips back down where they were before. If that starts to feel good, you can do one of two things: lift your arms off and or tap the feet out further. There are versions to extend the opposite arm, the same arm and leg. I really like a version where you press and then we do the same arm and leg. But really any version works as long as you ask yourself where you feel it. The purpose of this is to get that lower deep core work, so our transverse abdominis, while maintaining a neutral spine. If that means it's just a simple toe tap down, if that means it's two arms and legs, you do what works as long as you feel that core connection. And we do it without sacrificing and compromising our form. For our side plank, we have a few different options. So no matter what, we want to stack the shoulder over top of the elbow. We want to stack the hips and the knees. We're going to push the form on the floor so we stabilize through the upper half. You put your hand here, you can feel your lats also stabilize you. Connect the low core and then push up, hold. We want to pull the head back so everything stays in a line. If that feels good, you extend one leg. If that feels good, you extend two. There are many other options of leg lifts, hip pulsing, whatever you want to do, twisting through, but we want to make sure that we get this hold down first before we add in any other things. We want to make sure the hips are stacked so we're not turning backwards. We also want to make sure that our shoulder is not out, our elbows aren't out from underneath us. So pulling that arm in, pushing strong, and holding. Nice way to get the side of the body active. Challenge here is to make sure that both sides can do the same amount of work. So can you hold the same amount of time each side? So prone work is something that I think is neglected. I used to think it was the easy part of class, but I think it's just because I wasn't doing it right. So our prone work just means we're gonna lay on our stomach, and this is going to be an upper and mid back extension. We want to avoid dipping and arching into the low back. There are many ways to do this. This is just, again, a very basic version. So we're gonna lay on our stomachs. We're gonna draw the core muscles in away from the floor and nod the chin. From here, we're gonna have our hands out on our sides. I want you to draw the shoulders back and away from the floor so we're active through the upper back. Neck stays down. Then we're gonna inhale, float the upper body off. Exhale, lower back and down. So I like to set it up like this sometimes to draw the shoulders back, draw the core back, and then hover. It helps me connect to the upper half. There are versions where we can lift the upper body with hands like this. You can add the legs in with them stretched out straight, or arms in front. Many different versions. We just always want to ask ourselves where we feel it. It should be the upper and mid back. It's not about arching as if someone's pulling my hair back towards my heels. It's almost like someone's pulling me long ways and then up. So I'm activating through the whole back side of my body. If you're like me, I sit here a lot, and most of us need that upper back activation and posterior chain activation so we can counteract all that slouching that we might be doing. So bird dogs are a position that so many people always tell me, oh, that one's so easy. Like, what's the next thing up from there? But if you really do it right, it shouldn't feel as easy as we, I think, assume it to be. So we're gonna find a tabletop position, shoulders over top of wrists, hips in line with knees, nice long spine so the head to hips is in a straight line, we're not arching. The whole idea here is that we're anchoring through the opposite hand and knee so that we feel stable. So I always start with everybody just sliding one leg out and in, keeping that hip in line so we're not shifting over or losing our neutral spine. Slide out, slide in. Option to slide the opposite hand out along the floor or start to lift it up and down. So things that we're looking for, just like that prone extension, we're lengthening front and back rather than arching to the sky so we can maintain that neutral spine. We always want to watch the low back. We're also anchoring through opposite arm and leg so we don't feel like as soon as we lift our limbs off, we're shifting. So really important to watch that we are avoiding that shift across. There are many different versions of this and fancy moves and props you can add on, but that's the basic. Thinking about the hips staying stable, the low back staying neutral, and really anchoring through the opposite hands. And it's a really good position to test if we can draw those core muscles in as well here, just like we're on our back. Lastly, we're going to work on a seated position. I find just sitting up tall is challenging, so some of you may also agree with me that this is challenging too. So we're gonna sit up as tall as we can, nice straight spine. I like to tuck my hands underneath to start. I'm gonna take a big inhale, belly kind of goes out towards my thighs. Exhale, draw the core muscles in again, just like we felt on our back. From here, we're gonna hinge back. I always imagine it's like there's a string on my chest, so I look up and my chest is guiding the motion. Because if I kind of dip my head, lead with my shoulders, all of a sudden my spine's not neutral and I'm rounded. So I sit back, hold. Then I start to lift one arm up and down, and then switch up and down. My hands maybe come out from under there. Maybe I try to add two arms at the same time. Maybe I start to add a leg lift. All of these versions help us maintain this position, nice and long, neutral spine, but also while connecting the core muscles. The biggest mistake I see in class is that we hang out in that position for a little bit too long. We start to compromise through the neck and the shoulders and back, and we start to pull from the hip flexors. So if you need an extra second, I always say go as long as you can, especially if it's in a Pilates class where we might be hanging out there a little bit longer. Do what you can, sit up, and then re-engage and reactivate the core so we can reset and feel the proper muscles. I would never want anyone to stay in a position longer than needed and feel like they're overcompensating. We want to always know what the focus is and know that those are the muscles working.